Welcome to the Deep Dive, where we make Japanese history so exciting, even the shogun would have subscribed. Today, we're tackling the Tokugawa family tree. Because who doesn't love 250 years of political drama, power plays, and confusing family branches? And of course, our brilliant producer FireflyHaku is here, keeping this shogunate from collapsing faster than the Bakufu after Perry showed up. Subscribe now before history repeats itself, and let's dive in before the emperor abolishes us too. So, after 260 years of ruling Japan, the Tokugawa Shogunate gets abolished. And that's pretty much where the history books just stop. But what actually happened to the family? We're going to explore the main line, the mighty Gosanke, that's Owari, Ki, and Mito, and their spin-off sequel, the Gosankyō. This is basically Japan's real-life version of keeping up with the Tokugawas. All right, first up, the main line's new path, from shogun to YouTuber. Yep, you heard that right. We're kicking things off with the direct descendants of the shoguns themselves. And let me tell you, their journey into the modern world is pretty incredible. So you'd think the final shogun, Yoshinobu, would just kind of fade away after abdicating, right? I mean, the guy was under house arrest. But nope, he turned his forced retirement in Shizuoka into this whole new, surprisingly active chapter of his life. He got into photography, archery, even cycling. He ended up becoming the longest-living shogun in the dynasty's entire history. Okay, so here's where things get interesting. We're talking about the Tokugawa Sōke. That's the main family line. You'd assume Yoshinobu's own son would take over, but that's not how they rolled. Even though he had plenty of kids, they secured the succession by adopting heirs from other family branches. It was a pretty smart system, all about finding the most capable person for the job.
And this timeline just lays out the family's wild evolution. The 16th head, Ieyasu, was adopted when he was just 4 and grew up to be a key diplomat. His son, Iyamasa, was a major political figure. Then, boom, the 18th head, Tsunenari, breaks tradition and becomes a corporate executive. And today, the 19th head, Ieyasu, is a political commentator with his own YouTube channel. What a ride.
And you have to hear this story about Tsunenari, the corporate exec. His old boss at the shipping company, NYK Line, loved to talk about how surreal it was. He'd just casually yell across the office, "Maeda, Tokugawa, come over here." He was literally summoning the descendants of 2 of the most powerful samurai clans in Japanese history like they were any other employees. Can you even imagine that?
Okay, so what happens if the main line can't produce an heir? Well, the Tokugawas had a plan for that. A really good one. Let's get into the Gosanke, the shogunate's insurance policy. These were the 3 great houses, founded by the sons of the very first shogun, Ieyasu, to serve as the ultimate dynastic insurance policy.
And these 3 branches, Owari, Ki, and Mito, are fascinating. They were all started by Ieyasu's sons, but their fates were completely different. Owari was the biggest and richest, yet they never produced a shogun. The Ki branch actually produced 2 shoguns, but later went totally bankrupt. And then there's the Mito branch, the smallest of the 3, who became these huge cultural and scholarly heavyweights. Let's talk about the Owari branch for a second. These guys had some flashy leaders. One of them famously entered Nagoya riding a white bull. Today, though, their legacy is a lot more dignified. They run the incredible Tokugawa Art Museum. And I love this little story. The current head, Yoshitaka, was sorting through old documents and found records of workers slacking off. He apparently had a good laugh and said, "People back then were slacking off too, huh?" It's a great human moment. And the contrast between the Ki and Owari branches is just stunning. Ki hit the jackpot, producing 2 shoguns, but then completely crashed and burned financially after the war. Meanwhile, the Owari, who never got the top job, managed their assets brilliantly and founded this world-class museum. It just goes to show you, right? Past glory is absolutely no guarantee of future success.
So how did the Ki branch end up in ruins? Well, a lot of it was thanks to the 16th head Yorinaga. He was known as the Lord of Music for his passion and his absolutely wild spending on bringing Western music to Japan. It drove the family so deep into debt that the 18th head's wife had to open a restaurant just to pay the bills, and then her husband sold the business and abandoned the family.
But this story has an amazing comeback. The current 19th head of the Ki branch is Kotoko Tokugawa. She's the daughter who stayed behind, and she's now a successful architect who is single-handedly rebuilding her family's name and legacy. It's a truly powerful story of modern resilience. And then you have the Mito branch. They were called the Vice Shoguns. Their absolute masterpiece was the Dainhon Shi, a massive history of Japan that took 250 years to finish. They were the only Gosanke branch to be granted the title of Duke after the Restoration, and they were famous for being down to earth. One of their lords was known for just showing up at local festivals to eat dumplings with everyone. Today, the head of the family is an executive at a big insurance company.
Okay, so what if all three of the Gosanke branches failed to produce an heir? Well, the shogunate had a backup for the backup. That brings us to the Gosankyō. This was a second tier of 3 families, established by the 8th shogun, just to be an even deeper safety net.
And man, did this backup system prove its worth. The Tayasu branch provided Ayasato, who went on to lead the main family line. The Hitotsubashi branch produced 2 shoguns, including the very last one, Yoshinobu, and the Shimizu branch produced a pioneer of Japanese military aviation. Far from just being backups, these families were absolutely central to the Tokugawa story, right to the very end.
So, that brings us to our final section, the Tokugawa legacy today, a modern dynasty. After the fall of the shogunate, 2 world wars, and the abolition of the aristocracy, what does the Tokugawa legacy even look like? How does a family whose entire purpose was to rule Japan find its place in the modern world?
Well, this list pretty much says it all. They didn't just survive, they totally diversified. The Tokugawa name is no longer just for castles and politics. Now it belongs to architects, corporate executives, historians, and yes, even YouTubers. This is a family that has completely reinvented itself for the modern age.
So how does a family stay relevant when its original purpose is just gone? The modern Tokugawas give us a pretty clear answer. Their legacy isn't just about preserving the past. It's about adapting to the present and finding totally new ways to contribute. From shoguns to YouTubers, their ability to endure is, in many ways, their most impressive story of all.